Hi, my name's Tom Englert. I'm one of the HVAC instructors here at Rosedale Tech College, and I've been here about 5.5 years now. My background started basically when I was 17, and my dad realized that I didn't have the brains for the 4-year college type thing, so he knew I had a mechanical background. So he was a 20-year Navy man, and he convinced me to join the Navy. And it turns out that's the best thing I ever did. So I became a submarine sailor after spending a year on surface ship. I transferred to submarines strictly for the education part. And it worked out very well because my job as a machinist mate in the submarines was to make the oxygen that we would breathe so we could stay under for months at a time. And then from there we would temper it for our refrigeration, air conditioning plant, heating, and this sort of thing. And that's what led me into my career in my civilian life. How I got into teaching was actually accidental. But how my career got started was after the Navy. I knew I was in the heating and air conditioning already. So counting the Navy, I guess I've been doing it for 41, 42 years now. But when I got out of the Navy, I looked for a job and I worked for McKnight Development. They owned all the Wendy's and a bunch of bowling alleys and stuff like that, and I did their heating and air conditioning. Then after about 2-3 years, back then getting raises was really tough. There was a flooded job market. It was the end of the Vietnam era. So the trades back then, they had all the people they needed. So basically I was trying to move on. So I went to work for a couple different heating and air conditioning companies, and I just kind of felt the stale growth. And so naturally I had a wife and 3 kids at the time and needed more income, so I was doing a lot of side jobs. So basically when I felt the time was right, my dad even convinced me to do it. He says, you're not really going to get anywhere financially unless you start your own business. So that's how I kind of get started into that. It was just, it wasn't such a big demand with employers back then like the guys have today. So I got started my own business. It took a heck of a pay cut the first year, but the second year it took off, and I was in my own business for over 20 years. After that, health insurance became such a big issue. I had 3 guys and this sort of thing. So I got an offer from another company that wanted to start up a residential division. So long story short, they bought my company from me, and I ran my company through them, and then I had the medical benefits that I needed. And I stayed with them for 6 years until I had my knee replacement and had screws and rods put in my back, a pin in my shoulder. So doctors kept telling me to get out of the trade, so I gave my boss a year's notice, and he understood. So I went to work for a company that sells parts, and I was their tech support. Well, I was salaried and doing 70 hours a week, seminars at night, and I realized this isn't where I wanted to go, and I found that dealing with the older guys in the trade as a tech support wasn't very easy. It wasn't very rewarding at all. You had more arguments than anything else. So I said, you know what, I'd like to get involved with the young people who don't know anything about the trade and teach them the right way to do it. And it just kind of happened where a guy heard about one of my seminars one day because they had an instructor that retired, and said, I wanted to talk to you about a job with teaching, and that was at a different trade school. And I was with them for 1 year until they got new management in and want us to take pay cuts, the same old routine again. So I said, that's it, I'm going back into my own business. And then one day this lady called Kara called me up, introduced me to Rosedale, and that was 5.5 years ago. I've been here ever since, and I really like it. I think our program here is fantastic, and it's for several reasons. Number one, not to brag, but you got instructors that have the knowledge to teach the guys the right way. Second is the amount of equipment we have. We're not what I would call a pretty boy school where it's all brand new equipment. We have all types of equipment for HVAC, going from the old standing pilot furnaces right back behind me here to the new variable speed 2-stage gas furnaces. We got the communicating furnaces. We have rooftop units. And the other thing that I think makes our program special is we have over 80 pieces of equipment to run our schools on rooftop units, refrigeration units in the cafeteria, and the owner does not hire an outside contractor to work on it. If he did, I would be insulted. We repair all the equipment in both our diesel building and this building. So there's times that we'll be in the classroom and then we'll hear about another classroom, their air conditioning isn't operating, we'll go up on the roof with the class and fix it. So it's a lot of hands-on. Since I've been here, one of the things that we're proud of that I feel made better with our program is we do outside projects. For example, we like to do projects where they're nonprofit. So we've gone to several churches and worked on their equipment for them. They pay for their own materials such as the filters, belts, motors, whatever, and we'll go into a church, and we're still doing that to this day. Other projects we'll do, I only do it if it's a relative of a student. For example, if their mother or father or their grandfather needs a new furnace or an air conditioner, I can split the class up, have 4 or 5 guys go work on that project for their grandfather, put a new furnace in, while the rest of the class is here, and then I'll bounce between the 2 jobs overseeing them. So that it's the hands-on that really does it, and that's what really does it. The reason I think it's great for anybody to come to Rosedale and pursue HVAC is because of the job demand. And not only that, we have been told ourselves to our face by several employers that, and this just started recently 4 or 5 years ago, that they're able to take our students from this program and put them right into a service truck. Where in the past with other trade schools and everything, they said that they used to have to put a service tech with another guy for 6 months to a year till he got more educated, I'll say, in the field before they could put him on his own. So we're giving the guys enough background that the employers are able to use them. The other thing I like to bring up is that we've had several ladies come through the program. And one female student I had was fantastic with sheet metal, and she's running the sheet metal shop for one of our biggest companies down here. So that's proof of what we're doing right. And it's just, there's just such a big job demand, and literally we have employers coming to us, almost waiting in line for our students. I know that's hard to believe, but it's a fact. Our students do not have a problem as far as the HVAC getting a job when they graduate. There's that big of a demand. My 5 favorite aspects about it, and I never thought about that or realized it till I started teaching, but it's amazing. I'll get some students in the very beginning that can't tell the difference between a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver, do not know how to read a tape measure, and they're nervous. They're very nervous about it, and it may be embarrassed. So those are some of the guys that, or gals, whatever, and I'll pull them aside and say, don't worry about it, we'll work with you. And it's so nice at the end when you see them graduate, and they're so proud, and they're actually in a service truck, and they're a service technician. And what I like the most is guys that have graduated, and like I said, I've only been here 5.5 years. I'd say 70% of my students I still stay in touch with. They text me all the time, sometimes for tech support, and other times they'll show me a picture of a furnace they just put in and they're proud of it. That's what I like the most about it, is seeing someone starting out, knowing nothing about the hand tools they're going to use, and then 16 months later they're so proud that they just installed a furnace for the first time on their own, and they're sending me pictures of it. That's the best part. What makes my best student successful? One word: attitude. I push that the whole time, the whole 16 months with all my students. It's all about attitude. If you want to come in here and learn, you're going to learn. If you're here because you just have to be here and your parents told you to do something and you don't have the right attitude, I don't think you will be successful. Success revolves around the attitude. You have to go out there and want to do it. You have to want to do it. This is what we call our furnace, our residential furnace and air conditioning lab. Typically what we do here is many different things. We can tear furnaces apart to actually get inside and see the parts on them. But one of the things I like to do best is I can come in before the students come in and actually bug the furnaces, actually create a problem with them. And we can put like 2 students on that one, 2 on this one, 2 on this one, have them troubleshoot it and try and figure out what the problem is. Then we can have them switch. And each one of these furnaces is attached to an air conditioner. Each one's a different tonnage, each one's a different brand name, each one's a different size. And so we can start up the furnace with the air conditioning. We can take the Freon out of them, put the Freon back in. We can mismatch the equipment. So we have a lot of work that goes in here. We also have some heat pump units back here. So they get a wide variety of different equipment to work on. This particular lab is strictly residential equipment. We have another lab that's strictly commercial with refrigeration, and then we have another lab that we use for our sheet metal projects, ductwork and that sort of thing. This here is our, what we call our commercial lab. We have commercial HVAC units in here, and we got back behind you back there, we got some commercial refrigeration units. It's our biggest lab. But this lab here is what I would call my favorite as far as doing projects with the students. We have several, 4 or 5 rooftop units here that are both heating and air conditioning, and they actually run. We can operate them here in lab, but the favorite project I like to do with these every year is take them apart. And I have a specific reason for that. Just to tell you a quick story. It happened with me with my business about 30 years ago. I had an opportunity to put 3 rooftop units on a building in downtown Oakland. right down the road from Mercy Hospital. In order to do it, the city would only allow us to do it on a Sunday, so it was a $5,000 permit because they had to have police block off the streets and everything else. Then it was going to cost me another $3,000 to $4,000 for the crane to go up to 13 stories. So I came up with an idea. I went ahead and bid the job against competitors, and I annihilated my competitors with the bid because we took the units apart, piece by piece by piece, put them in the back of the truck, laid the pieces out, brought them down one unit at a time, went up the elevator with it, and reassembled them on the roof. Brand new units. So made very good money on the job. I didn't need the crane, I didn't have to get the permit, all because we took the units apart. So that made me think about lab projects and guys getting into these things. They have to repair them on rooftops all the time. So one of the things I do is I always assign 2 to 3 students per rooftop unit. That's why they're so banged up now. But we physically take them apart down to the last screw, pump all the Freon out of it, take the compressor out, take all the electrical system out of it, take it all apart, and the students are all proud. They hold up all the parts. We take pictures of it, and then they can use that for their resumes. Then we put the unit back together and actually start the unit up and run it. That way there, they know a rooftop unit inside and out, and they can do anything they need to do out in the field to work on them. Okay, this is our hydronics lab. That's where we deal with residential and commercial boilers. This is a pretty nice setup we have here. We have a high efficiency boiler right here. That's your typical residential one, and what's nice is it hangs on the wall. And what we do is I have the students, every time we get into the hydronic semester, when we're all done, we tear all the piping apart so that the next class can put it all back together again. So what this piping does, it comes across and heats up our domestic hot water tank, heats up the radiators like you would have in a typical home. And then this is a new thing out on the market today, used a lot. I have one in my own shop at home. It's under the floor heat, which you can put under wood floors, ceramic floors, or you can put under a garage floor in the basements, and it's all done from one boiler. One boiler heats the whole system. So that's becoming pretty new today on the market with a lot of homes, where a lot of people will use a hydronic boiler to heat their basement because it's always the cold spot. They can use it to heat their driveway, heat their garages, and at the same time use it to heat their domestic hot water. And it can even tie in with air handlers with the air conditioning. So you can heat with hot water instead of a gas furnace, because you're doing everything else with your boiler and still have your air conditioning. So we're able to lay out that type of equipment here in our lab. Okay, this is our sheet metal lab. We use it for multiple jobs. We can wheel in a piece of equipment where if we don't have room someplace else, refrigeration unit to work on it. But mostly this is the area where we teach our students how to make ductwork. We start off with flat pieces of sheet metal that we keep underneath here, bring it out, and that's part of their lab projects, is we'll pull them out and we'll let them pick a project they want. It can be anything from building a bird feeder to a house or something. And then from there we'll move them up into actually building commercial and residential ductwork. We also have what we call a new construction room here that simulates building a new home. And we can put the furnaces in them, install them with the air conditioning, add all the ductwork, run the branch lines right down to the diffusers. When we're finished, we can tear it all out, and then it's ready to go for the next class. We also use this room for other things, such as air conditioning and a furnace together, that we can wheel around and do different things with it. This is not our furnace lab, but we do have some more furnaces back here behind me. We like to keep these ones separate because they're the lower efficiency furnaces, so we can vent them with a metal flue pipe. And in the corner we have a couple of fuel oil furnaces, which is still a lot of them around today, but not many people know how to work on them. So it's nice that we can train the guys on the fuel oil furnaces. But for our sheet metal lab though, we have all the presses and cutters and everything we need here. We teach them how to use these to bend the sheet metal with all the different angles and that sort of thing. To sum everything up, I think this is a great trade school and a great career, great trade to get into. One of the reasons I think it's so good is because everybody today has a furnace, and most people have air conditioning in their homes. In 41 years, I have never been without a job. And back to what I said in the beginning, was attitude. I think we have the right attitude here at Rosedale. But the mechanical field of HVAC today is in such demand, and most people picture it as these little pieces of equipment in people's basements. But it goes anywhere from a half-ton air conditioner up to 900-ton chillers in big office buildings. So we get into the big stuff. And there's so many different areas you can get into just in our field, such as boilers, centrifugal chillers, all the way down to the residential, commercial refrigeration. I just think it's a great trade to get into. It's in big, gigantic demand, but you have to want to work with your hands. But that's the big thing today. It's in such demand, and everybody has one in their house. When your furnace goes down, no one thinks about it till they can't keep their thermostat set at that 68 to 70. Then it's like, oh my, what do I do now? Okay, so the demand is there, and if you like working with your hands, Rosedale's the place to go, and this is the field to be in.